Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, my name's Rich McDonald, and I played David Mason in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Everything Geek podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Leif Gaffert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldovar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Rory, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have Jeffrey Pierce, best known for playing Joseph Turner in Call of Duty World War II, Tommy in The Last of Us, Thomas A. Merrick in Call of Duty Ghosts, Mother in Medal of Honor and Medal of Honor Warfighter, Jack Jameson / Roger Price in The Tomorrow People, Trevor Dobbs in Bosch, Charlie Jade in Charlie Jade, Jason Bourne in the Bourne Conspiracy video game, Jack Sylvane in Alcatraz, Mason Knight in For the People, and T-888 in Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Wow, that was just a blast from the past. I haven't thought about most of those in a long time. I'm doing very well. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show today, especially considering Call of Duty is still fairly recently out, well, a month out, but, you know, that's a month flies, so that's not that long at all.
Yeah, I think the audience is building for it too. I know that everybody at Activision is really happy with the numbers, and I love the game. I'm really pleased with how it came out.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us how you originally got into acting?
How I originally got into acting. I think at a pretty young age realized that I was probably not going to have the will to do anything else. So it was kind of it was this or nothing. I think I committed to it young and started chasing it when I was a teenager. And got my union card when I was 17 and started working right after I got out of high school and been very fortunate to have very few gaps in that stretch of time. But I've been lucky, and I have been diligent, and it's all worked out pretty well.
That's great. Can you tell me how you were originally cast as Turner in Call of Duty World War II?
Well, I knew the casting director is a woman named Ivy Eisenberg, who is just one of the best casting directors in Los Angeles, just in terms of her work ethic and her sort of knowledge of the talent pool. And she had me in after Alcatraz. She'd seen that and wanted to meet me. And that was, boy, at this point, 7-8 years ago at this point. And that was our first sort of connection. And then she put me in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I did a lot of sort of extra soldiers in that and background voices. And then that got me cast in Ghost, and I've made a lot of fans at Activision. And so when this one came up, I was one of the first people that they saw and was lucky to strike a chord with everybody.
That's really cool. So, I mean, would you say that because you had done Modern Warfare and Ghosts before that helped your chances with World War II?
I think it probably worked the opposite way. Nobody wants to oversaturate their games with the same actors every time. And I had just done the multiplayer voice work for Advanced Warfare and a couple of like fighter pilots in that. So I think that there were actually some questions about, do we really want to bring the same actor in who's done all this other work for us? Is it going to get repetitive for the audience? And fortunately, they didn't feel that way in the final decision. But I think Ivy fought that battle for me. She really pushed hard for me in the part, and it was a dream job. It was everything that I hoped it would be from the beginning.
That's great. And you mentioned that Modern Warfare was the first Call of Duty you worked on. Were you aware of the popularity of the franchise before you worked on a Call of Duty game for the first time?
Yeah, I had played like the old Call of Duties on my Mac, like the first ones that came out, and so I was aware of it. And even back when those games just started, the graphics and the gameplay was just superior. I had never seen anything like the stuff from the first couple of Call of Duties, and so I was absolutely aware of the game. I don't know that I was aware of what a cultural landmark it is in terms of the number of people who play, because it had changed a lot since it was just a PC game or when it had first come out, and grown. So I wasn't, I don't know. Sometimes when you go in for a big project, nerves can take a toll, but I was very relaxed in my approach, and I think that's probably why I ended up getting the first one that I did.
That's really cool, and I'm actually in the same boat. That I remember playing the original Call of Duty games, when they came out as well. It's probably something I shouldn't confess on there, because, I have said I am 21 years old. You can probably guess I was not very old when I played the first ones, but, I've played them since the beginning too.
It led you to your vocation, so, it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. If I didn't, we won't be here today talking, so just as well I did play them.
Absolutely.
Now, one of my favourite parts of Call of Duty World War II was the dynamic and contrast between the two leaders, your character Turner and Pierson. Can you tell us what it was like recording their scenes?
The entire cast was amazing. Josh is a bona fide movie star and incredibly talented guy, and so we really sort of went after it. It's interesting because people ask, is motion capture, is that fun? Is it enjoyable, or are you just bogged down in the helmets and the mocap suits? And I find that the opposite is true. That sort of you feel like you're back doing a play again, and you really have to commit every moment to what's right in front of you and the actor that's right in front of you, because you don't have a set. And you have maybe a gun, but you don't have all the props that you would have on a film or TV set. So the sort of level of work that we got to was all about he and I, and just back and forth. And he is talented and generous as an actor, and fully committed. So it was a piece of cake. I would go back and do the whole game over again in a heartbeat. There was not one moment that I didn't enjoy my time on that set.
That's really cool. And Turner was one of the only main characters that actually died in the game. Can you tell us what it was like recording his death scene?
It was pretty intense. Everybody was on set, and there, that entire sort of battle sequence that leads into that moment, we did all of it. We did it as one scene. So from getting shot to getting dragged across the battlefield by Brett, who plays Daniels, and then everybody else comes in, and there's that whole firefight going on, and the scene between Josh and I. And so you've got 6 or 7 actors, and everybody is 100% committed. In motion capture, you never do close-ups. So every scene, you have to be present and acting your ass off every minute that you're there. And so surrounded by all those guys and doing it made it very easy, but it was certainly intense. And in watching the sort of final product, that moment where I've died on camera before, but the sort of just the lifelessness of that final image of Turner is brutal. and felt very, very real in the performance, and then certainly the magic that they work in post-production is extraordinary.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, there's like images like online and on like the Call of Duty wiki of the shot you describe of Turner's lifeless body. It's, from like video games I play and all, like it's probably one of the ones that just sticks in my mind the most. Like the lifelessness you described, it was a hard death to watch. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, we talked a lot about over the course. I mean, we were working on the game for 2.5 years, and they were prepping for it 6 months before any of us came on board. And we talked a lot over the course of it about really committing to it. And I used as an example the opening scene from The Last of Us and how profoundly affecting that was on us as actors and on the audience as well. When she dies, and so we really wanted to try and reach toward that level of work and that level of commitment in what we were trying to do. So I'm glad I'm glad the audience is feeling that that's an impactful moment.
Definitely. Call of Duty World War II was the first in the franchise since 2008's World at War to be set during World War II. What does it mean to you to be part of this game as Turner?
It is the culmination of a long, long dream. I fought like hell to be in Band of Brothers, and I had very few credits at the time, so I had a real uphill battle just to get seen for that. And eventually I met with Tom Hanks and read for it, and Donnie Wahlberg got cast in the role that I had been pursuing. But I was able to, that sort of chasing that part built my entire career. It's how I got my first good agent. It's how I got my first good manager, and they opened all the doors that came after that. So getting the chance to sort of honor World War II has been on my actor's bucket list for a long time, and I felt like I got to achieve that in some ways more effectively than I would have in a small part in Band of Brothers. So it was utterly satisfying.
That's really great. What would you say were the biggest challenges you faced while working on the game?
I don't know that I would describe any of the journey as a challenge. Challenging in terms of just committing to getting the work done right, but there were no headaches, if that makes any sense. There was no sort of behind the scenes drama. The cast was, these guys are and women are some of they're at this point some of my favorite people on the planet. Jonathan Tucker and Jeff Shine and Josh and David Alpay, who plays the Brit. These are just fantastic guys. Russell, who it's just Matt, who plays the Colonel. Just really extraordinary folks. So I felt, just blessed and lucky every time Ivy called and said, "Hey, can you come out and work for the week?" It was everything that you hope an acting gig is going to be.
That's really cool. What would you say was your favorite memory from your time on the game?
There are all the moments of performance, but when we weren't working, we sat around at this conference table in our mocap suits and talked and laughed and shared our life stories with each other. That was probably, to me, the most special part of the experience. We really bonded as friends, and that's what I'll take away. I think probably for the rest of my life. I think I'll be connected to these guys.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. It's hard for me imagining like everyone just in mocap suits, just like talking about general things, like what's going on in the world. telling their life stories all while wearing the, gear that you'll be recording scenes in. It must have been pretty surreal, that.
It is, but it goes away. You stop thinking about it after the first couple days. Although there is one mocap suit at the Activision soundstage that has, they have different sort of color schemes on the uniforms, and one of them used to be orange and has been washed so many times that the butt and the crotch have become more like flesh toned, and you can't see the other actor in that particular set of pants and not die laughing, because you just, out of the corner of your eye, it looks like they're wearing like just a pair of black chaps and nothing else. But other than that, the motion capture suits are pretty. They're just another costume.
Yeah, it's really hilarious. You know what would have been so funny is like if after the point where it became that color, like it just became like a running joke on the Fiend where like someone has to wear it one day, someone has to wear it the next. Like just to name some examples, like Josh could have to wear it one day, Brett the other day, Jonathan the next, you another day. It could have just been every day.
We all got at least one day with it. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but the guys at Activision have a very good sense of humor. So we all got at least one chance with the sort of the monkey butt suit. But that's what we needed behind the scene pictures of.
Yeah, it was probably on purpose.
Yeah, you got to share the wealth.
Yeah, even if it wasn't on purpose, let's just pretend it was, because it's that funny.
Yes, absolutely. What did you do to piss off the costume guys?
Yeah, and then one of the other cast members just admits that they did something bad, but to annoy them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll never know.
We'll never know. They're an incredible bunch too. We're there, and there are 6-8 actors there on the day, but then there's a crew of 20 guys and women working their butts off to make us look and sound good. And there's a whole sort of connection to them that'll be special for a long time too. And they all sort of flow around within the video game motion capture industry. So it's great to sort of reconnect with guys who were on The Last of Us and Advanced Warfare, and just sort of run across them on different sound stages. It's a special bunch. It's a part of my job that I love.
Yeah, it's really great. I just have to ask or point out, did you have a pun in there? Because you said they worked their butts off, and we were just talking about a butt suit. Was that intentional?
It was not intentional. It must be just stuck in my head.
Yeah, I just had to point that out. But yeah. Which would you say has been the most challenging role in your career so far, and why?
Most challenging role. You mentioned Charlie Jade. We did that in South Africa. Not a lot of people saw it at the end of the day, but it was really far ahead of its time. It was we shot 20 episodes, and it was much more like a book than it was a TV series, which is sort of like become really, over the past 5 or 6 years, has been the way to do television. It was incredibly challenging physically because we were shooting 2 sort of full production units at the same time, and so I would shoot a full day on one unit, and then I would get in a bus and go over to the second unit and keep shooting. And at the time, I had like a 3rd-degree high ankle sprain, and then I got 21 stitches in the palm of my hand, and there was a lot to overcome in order to do that well. So yeah, I think that was probably the most challenging experience that I've had. And we had issues with scripts and issues with just production in general, but I've had a great executive producer, and we worked hard to try and get that show right. So yeah, I would say that was probably the most challenging experience.
Yeah, I'd say so, just based on what you're describing with the injuries and the, uh, issues with the scripts. I can definitely see why that would be challenging.
Yeah, it was a great learning experience. I learned what not to do, and I learned what to do when things get rough.
Yeah, I mean that's the most important thing. Like, every job, I'm sure you'd agree, is a learning experience. So I mean that was a big one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want the same lesson twice. One of the things that I sort of tried to commit to 6 or 7 years ago was I don't want, it's New Year's. What do I want? I want all new lessons from the world. I don't want to get repeat harsh lessons. That has been sort of my mantra ever since then. And it's good. It keeps me moving forward, finding new things to learn instead of learning the same old, making the same mistakes again and again. That's not the way to go.
Yeah, I'm going to use that advice now.
Yeah. It was wise of me, wiser than I knew even at the time.
Yeah, my final question for you, Jeffrey. Do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
I have two that I can't talk about at all, unfortunately. Two things that I absolutely love, and I'd be very happy to come back when either or both of them can become public knowledge. But yeah, I'm lucky to have two things that are good enough that I've signed NDA after NDA that I can't disclose what I'm working on.
Well, if it's more than one NDA, they must be very special.
Everybody wants one. Production and studio and everybody.
Wow.
But yeah, they will be very exciting when they become public knowledge.
That's very cool. Well, that's all of my questions to you today, Jeffrey. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Thanks, Rory. A pleasure talking to you too, and thanks to everybody who took the time to listen.
And I'll be looking forward to talking to you again soon when those things do become public knowledge.
It'll be a pleasure, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks again for joining us, and take care. Bye.
You too, Rory. Take care.
Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links, check out our website, website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/officialeverythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Septus Destroyers. Check out Jeffrey Pierce on Twitter, twitter.com/Pierce_Jeffrey, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1138.com. Geeks out, everyone.
I personally I shied away from it. I realized I couldn't do that for any sort of major corporation the rest of my life. So I decided to seek other choices, and I did a little soul searching, found out, really the only thing that was
get to do really cool things, and I've had the opportunity to play those roles as well. But what was cool about Javier is he sometimes he would stumble into his heroism, which I always thought was very human.